Childhood braces. Um, since I had polio in 1950 and didn't get to Warm Springs, Georgia, it was the Georgia Warm Springs Foundation at the time I went in 1956. There were 6 years there that I grew, my back curved, and I wore braces. The braces that were made then were heavy steel with leather straps. You've all seen pictures of them in whatever. And I had one that started at my waist and ran down to my shoes, clipped into shoes, so that I could be stood up and we could lock the hips and lock the knees and I could stand upright. So there was no trunk support, and I didn't ever have any till 56. So my spine curved horrifically. I've had one post-polio physician in my adulthood say it was the crookedest spine he'd ever seen. But at any rate, by the time I got to Warm Springs, I was 12. And they started a frantic and dramatic program over the 7 months I was there, from, I don't know, August to April of 57. Spine curvature control. First they tried body cast. Thank God that didn't work. I would have been in it a year, flat on my back or on my stomach on a stretcher at the foundation. It would have been a nightmare. And they tried wedging my back straighter that way, and they did that for about 6 weeks before they concluded it wasn't going to make it better because no progress was being made. My back was too crooked. So they took me out of that, and then they devised a corset with shoot, I don't know what it's called, a chin occipital steel piece, so that the ratchet went up and down from the corset to the occipital headpiece. Then there was a, steel around the outside, which formed to a chin piece in the front. And you could jerk up the ratchet in the back to elevate the head and take the weight, hopefully, of the head off the spine. So you stabilized the curvature while I went through my growth years. So that corset and that headgear, boy, I can't remember the name of that thing, alternated with the Sayer head sling, S-A-Y-R-E. I've still got an old one. I was supposed to hang for 30 minutes 4 times a day in this Sayer head sling. And the Sayer head sling was the same kind of deal, but it was strung around your chin and neck, or not neck, chin and back of your head with a weight on the other end of the rope, so it pulled you up straight. Terrible pressure on the jaw and the back of the head. My jaw was always going to sleep during those 30 minutes. But we had a 25-pound weight on the other end. And I did that at home from the ages of 12 to 15. Plus wore the corset with a head traction. That's what we called it. Head traction during my sitting hours. And then that damn Milwaukee frame at night. It literally was a steel bird cage. Your trunk was on the inside of the bird cage. The framework, I'll have to draw it and leave a drawing somewhere, but you could probably look it up in archives of medical literature. The framework was like a bird cage on the outside of your body, and it fit tight at the hips with a leather molded thing, and then tight at the chin and the occipital. And this one was stronger than the headgear with the corset, head traction with the corset, because the ratchets were in the front and the back, and you could ratchet that sucker way tight, and it hurt like hell if they over-ratcheted, overstretched. It was difficult to breathe, and then, of course, your hips went to sleep, and your chin and your head went to sleep. So it was hard to get comfortable in that thing, and I had to sleep in it every night and use it between ages 12 and 15 in the daytime sometimes. The way we worked out schooling those years was I went to crippled children's school, and I did it on a stretcher until I graduated from 8th grade, whatever age that was, 14 or something. And when I went to high school, I was allowed to sit up. It was supposed to be 1 hour 4 times a day. All the rest was to be lying down and in braces all the time. And so we bunched all those 4 hours together up front. And I went to high school for the first 2 years from 8 to 12. And then came home, put on the braces, laid in the bed all day and night. I did a lot of reading, a lot of listening to the radio, some television watching. But we had a bed that, we could at least raise the back at a tilted an angle, like a hospital bed. So I wasn't totally flat all the time, but I took the weight of my head off my spine in hopes that the spine would stay there. Thank God I was liberated at age 15 when I went back to Warm Springs for functional training, they called it, for the summer. When I was 15, that was such fun. Memories about that later. But when I went back at 15 and they determined my growth spurt was probably done, I didn't have to wear the head traction, didn't have to wear the Milwaukee frame anymore, and we switched to a polyester resin back brace, specialty of the foundation. And I've worn those since I was 15. They are more important to me almost than my life. Definitely equally, if not more important, than the wheelchair. Can't sit up without them, can't function without them. They have to be made well and right. And they always were. I would go back to Warm Springs at least every 3 to 4 years to get a new one until Warm Springs quit running as a post-polio treatment clinic and became a general clinic primarily oriented towards spinal cord injury. What really put the icing on the cake was all the old brace specialists, the old guys in the brace shop down there, retired. There wasn't anybody else to do them. The technology, I outlived the technology. The new plastics came in, and none of those are as able to be both stiff and flexible as the old plastic. So I've had a lot of trouble the last 10 years trying to get the right brace. The other problem is, of course, corporate orthotics, a disaster to healthcare in the late 20th century and continuing as far as I can tell. That's one of the worst things to happen to medicine. Okay, that's the end of the braces. I'm still in that wonderful brace today and hope to be able to find them till I die, or I won't be sitting up. I'll be bedridden